South Global South, speaking to us from the Japanese island of Hokkaido, where the G8 are meeting, and thousands of activists have come out to protest. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. As we turn now to the 3 American military contractors freed from the Colombian jungle, speaking out against their former captors, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or Farc. Marc Gonsalves, Thomas Howes, Keith Stansell, among the 15 hostages, including the French Colombian politician Ingrid Betancourt, who was rescued in an elaborate military operation last week. The Colombian government says it managed to infiltrate Farc command and fool the rebels into thinking they were transferring the hostages to another location. On Monday, the 3 Americans spoke publicly for the first time since their release. Marc Gonsalves called his former Farc captors terrorists and urged them to release hundreds of remaining hostages. The freed Americans are employees of the military firm Northrop Grumman. They've been captured. They were captured in 2003 after their surveillance plane crashed in the Colombian jungle. The rescue operation was widely seen as a major blow to the Farc. The 15 freed prisoners were the most high profile of hundreds the Farc had held in hopes of securing the release of captured rebels and achieving other political demands. The group's already been depleted by the deaths of 3 senior leaders this year and a series of defections. Criticism of Farc has come from all sides. Indigenous, peasant, and human rights groups have denounced Farc's kidnappings and armed operations and said they also deflect attention from government abuses. I'm joined now by 3 guests here in the firehouse. Mario Murillo, professor of communications at Hofstra University, a producer at Pacifica radio station WBAI here in New York, author of the book Colombia and the United States, War, Terrorism, and Destabilization, currently finishing another book on the indigenous movement in Colombia and its popular use of the media in community organizing. Also in Washington, D.C., I'm joined by Michael Evans, director of the Colombia Documentation Project, National Security Archive, and on the line from New Brunswick, Canada, Manuel Rozental. He's a Colombian physician, human rights activist, and member of the Association of Indigenous Councils of Northern Cauca in Colombia. He fled to Canada in 2005 following several threats on his life. Mario, you have been writing about what happened, and now there's serious questions, Swiss reports of whether, in fact, this was staged, whether $20 million wasn't paid in ransom for these prisoners by the Colombian government.
Right, there's a lot of questions, actually, because there's 3 different versions. Unfortunately, the official version is the one that's getting the most play, and obviously Alvaro Uribe is getting a lot of political mileage out of it, and that's, of course, this dramatic rescue operation that you described in the introduction. There's 2 other reports, the one that you just alluded to from the French Swiss radio, public radio service, that based on high sources that the reporters had, saying that one of the wives of one of the guards, one of the Farc rebels who was involved in securing and maintaining security around the hostages, was in constant contact and made this arrangement for a $20 million ransom pay. And that's from one report. Another report, which probably is a lot more feasible if this, I haven't gotten deeper in that one, but the other report is that the Colombian government actually took advantage of a diplomatic effort that was already underway for a long time by the former French consul in Bogota, as well as a leading Swiss diplomat who was in Colombia, and they were making arrangements, and they even got the green light from the Colombian government. It was in the Spanish daily El País when the Colombian president actually announced that, yeah, this interchange, this dialogue was actually proceeding. And it turns out, apparently, according to this report, that the Colombian government intercepted the helicopters that were on their way. So it wasn't really a high infiltration operation that was in the highest levels of the Farc commanders. The Farc were actually turning the folks over to specifically this delegation led by these 2 diplomats. And apparently the Colombian government kind of took a right turn and got a lot of political mileage as a result. A lot of questions are still around what happened, but unfortunately, as I said, the official story is the one that's getting out the most.
I want to turn now to the freed American military contractors. On Monday, they spoke out for the first time since their rescue. Marc Gonsalves was the most vocal of the 3 in criticizing Farc. This is some of what he had to say.
There was a time that when I slept, I would dream that I was free. That time was only a few days ago. It feels so good to be free here now with all of you. I want to tell you about the Farc, a guerrilla group who claim to be revolutionaries, fighting for the poor people of Colombia. They say that they want equality. They say that they just want to make Colombia a better place. But that's all a lie. It's a cover story, and they hide behind it, and they use it to justify their criminal activity. The Farc are not a revolutionary group. They are not a revolutionary group. They are terrorists. Terrorists with a capital T. Bad people. Their interests lie in drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping. They refuse to acknowledge all human rights, and they reject democracy. I've seen them hold a newborn baby in captivity, a baby that needed medical help, that was sick. They kept them there in the jungle. I myself and my friends, Tom and Keith, we've also been victim of their hate, of their abuse, and of their torture. And I've seen how even their own guerrillas commit suicide in a desperate attempt to escape the slavery that the Farc have condemned them to. The majority of the Farc's forces are children and young adults. They come from extreme poverty and have very little or no education. Many of them, they can't even read. So they're easily tricked into joining the Farc, and they're brainwashed into believing that their cause is a just cause. But once they join, they can never leave, because if they try, they will be killed. There are people who right now, in this very moment, they're still there in the jungle, being held hostage. In this exact moment, right now, they're being punished because we got rescued successfully. I want you guys to imagine that. Right now, they're wearing chains around their necks. They're gonna get up early tomorrow morning. They're gonna put a heavy backpack on their backs, and they're gonna be forced to march with that chain on their neck, while a guerrilla with an automatic weapon is holding the other end of his chain like a dog. Those are innocent people. Those are people that were fighting or working for the country. And all they want is what we wanted and what God had the grace to give us, our freedom. I want to send a message to the Farc. Farc, you guys are terrorists. You deny that you are. You say with words that you're not terrorists, but your words don't have any value. Don't tell us that you're not terrorists. Show us that you're not terrorists. Let those other hostages come home. Agree to President Uribe's proposal of an encounter zone. Anywhere and anytime you want, he proposed an encounter zone. Then make the humanitarian agreement and let the others come home. Then after that, a peace process. Because otherwise, this downward spiral that the Farc are on now will continue. And the Colombian military is going to dismantle the entire organization.
That is the quote of the American contractor who was captured, Gonsalves, speaking yesterday, Marc Gonsalves, in San Antonio. Let's begin with you, Mario, your thoughts.
Well, first of all, he said a lot of things, so we can comment on a lot of things. Obviously, one of the things being the fact of the terrible conditions in which these hostages are held is something that obviously nobody could really argue about. It's unjust, and everybody from Fidel Castro to Hugo Chavez to many other people around the world have been demanding the FARC turn these folks over. But he also says a lot of things that kind of whitewash the situation. First of all, I think it's very important. One of the tragedies of this whole thing is that we will never get to the bottom of what Gonsalves and his so-called contractors were doing in Colombia. We have to recall that he was, first of all, the fact that his plane went down, the official record says it was an accident, and they went down in the jungles, although the FARC had claimed initially that they shot it down. We also have to point out that